Now let's talk about web contexts. Now the information in this animation is relevant to both creating a new web template or to adding a web context to an existing template. To create a new web template, you can do it in two ways. First, you can use the New menu and select a web page template, or you can use the welcome screen, click on Create Template, and choose Web. There is no default information or settings when you create a new web template, so just click on Finish. Creating a new web context is similar to creating a print context in the sense that there's no contents inside of your page. The difference is a web page doesn't have any margins, it doesn't have any page sizes, so by default, when you create the new template or the new context, you see nothing. There's not even the gray border indicating a page boundary because there is no page. Adding data to a web context, however, is essentially the same as print. So you can just start typing, add variable data, and any text that you want. Styling also works the same as any other context. Now, because of the whole this is in a browser, it's important to understand how this actually appears inside the browser. For this, you have two methods of viewing the actual output. You can go in the Live tab, and that'll show you kind of how it happens in the browser, or you can look at it directly inside of your default browser by clicking on Preview HTML. Now, it's clear from looking at this that there is really nothing else than your contents by default. So it's kind of your responsibility to create a design for your web page. Now, this is normally done by a web designer, and this designer can either use their own tools and then provide you with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that you would import into the Connect Designer by simply dragging the information and the snippets and the style sheets and the images, or they could create the template directly inside of Connect. Now let's take a look at the properties of a web page section. There are two different windows or dialogues that you can go and take a look at in terms of properties. The first one is the actual properties window, and this is where you will set the title of the page, so what appears inside of your browser window in the title bar. If you have a shortcut icon, also called a fav icon, you can put it here. And if you want to add meta information into the header, generally the web designer will know what kind of information needs to be put in there. You can add it inside of the meta information group here. The other thing that is important is the includes. And this basically defines what is included as resources when you generate your web page. Now, if you know a little bit how HTML and browsers work, you may know that you can include one or more style sheets inside of your header, and you can also include external JavaScripts that will do things on your page. Now, by default, the includes that we have in terms of style sheet is the default PReS Connect style sheet, then the global style sheet that affects all the contexts, and finally the web context style sheet that is specific to that context. We won't cover exactly how to use JavaScript files here because that's more relevant to the advanced course, but needless to say, JavaScript files will be included as resources in the header. The ones that we provide here help with form validation, and we'll see that in just a second in the form builder. Now let's take a look at the form builder. The form builder is a tool that essentially is for web contexts. It's not available in the print and email, and it will help you create a form where user can enter their information and submit it to the server for processing, and it will also add automatic validation. One small note is that once you have built your form, you can't edit it directly from here, so make sure that you don't forget any of the fields that you want here. Now on top, we have the ID of the form if you have any CSS or scripts that you want to apply to this form, and we have the action. Now this is the URL or the page name where the form will be submitted, and that can either be a process on your server on your existing web server, or something like a PlanetPress workflow process that will get that information. Now, the validation method, the standard one, is the one that we provide, the web form validations, which uses the properties that you'll put for each field down there. Whereas the custom one expects you to build your own validation method, so probably it's best to stick for standard unless you know your JavaScript. Now, adding a field into your form is basically clicking on plus and selecting which type of field you want to put in. If you're comfortable with HTML, you may realize that a couple of these are not standard HTML elements, such as the URL or the email. This is because of the validation. So if you want the user to enter an email, you can be comforted in the fact that our system will automatically know if it's not an email, so it doesn't have the @ or dot, it's not a valid email. It will automatically warn the user that it's not valid. Another thing that's cool, which can be used for emails and passwords, for example, is that if you have two email fields, in the validation for email, you can tell it to require it to be equal to another field. So enter your email, confirm your email. Other fields will have different properties, such as text, will let you set what kind of minimum length and maximum length you want for the text. So let's say you want a name, then you would say minimum 3 characters, maximum 50 or 70 or something like that. The placeholder box at the top is a small text that is put inside of the form field itself, which disappears as soon as the person starts typing. So if you enter something in there, we'll see in a moment what it actually does inside the browser. You can also write a custom message, meaning if the person enters invalid information, it'll override the default message and show what you want to say here. Another interesting feature is the date. And what the date will do is display a date picker to simplify how the person enters the date in your system. The select is the equivalent of a dropdown, so you can enter as many values as you want here. I won't go through it because it's pretty self-explanatory. And the last thing is that you always want to end with a button. Now, there are generally 2 buttons on a form. You have the submit button, and you have the reset button, which will erase everything that the person has entered in the form. So here's the form that we put in. Let's go into the browser to show how functional it is. So there we go. Let's say I enter a wrong email. The system automatically validates that it is not a valid email format. As soon as I enter a valid email, the warning disappears. And because I specified that the value must be the same, I get a warning if it's not. Here in the text box, you can see the placeholder in action. As soon as I start typing, it disappears. And again, I have a small warning because it doesn't correspond, but this time it shows the custom warning message. And finally, in the date box, you have to enter a valid date. Now, this is dependent on the system locale. So let's say in my system, it's expecting a month, day, year. So this is what's validated by it. Now, if I submit the form, this won't actually work because it is expecting to have a process or something in the background that actually takes the information and does something with it. And this is not the case in my current environment. So one last thing, how do you actually show this web page to clients? Well, in order to show them, you need to use the workflow or the automation tool, and this is how you will actually use the web pages. So you have to send the web template to your PlanetPress workflow and then create a process that will use it. We'll take a look at that in the workflow module.